Backyard Professor videos. I'm Kerry Schertz, the Backyard Professor. I want to share some ideas with you tonight on this video as a sort of a prelude to the next part of Charles Harrell's book that I'm going to be getting into. This is My Doctrine, the historic development of Mormon theology. I was asked this last week, what is real? Now, the idea, the intent behind the question is to philosophically show me that empirical physicalism, I don't know if that's exactly what it's called. I've had my head stuck in apologetics for so long that I'm really not up on the philosophical ideas bandying about these days. I've got a smidgen of understanding, but I'm working on that. Studying some math, some science, some philosophy and history and cosmology and things like that. The idea that empirically having evidence as a basis of reality, as a basis of truth, that is the atheist stance and that it's wrong. And I want to explore this just a little bit with you, using the ancient four elements, the supposition of the ancients that all of reality was out of four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. Let me explore this with you for just a few minutes. This idea of asking what is real is actually a very excellent question. It's a very important question. All of us like to pretend, hope, imagine, think that we're rational, that we're realistic, that we're basically down to earth, we're normal, whatever that means, that we're not Fruit Loopy, goofy, idiot, wacko, weirdo, insane boogeymen and dodos. We want the world to take us seriously, for the world to take our ideas seriously, right? You know, we have discourse with one another. We try to persuade each other that our point of view is better than someone else's, or else we agree with a particular point of view because it makes sense, etc. Now, I've kind of appeared to people to become kind of a hardhead, I think. And there's a reason for this. As I have been assessing and reassessing what I think I know, the subjects that I've studied, how I've analyzed, discussed, learned, translated, interpreted various themes and ideas, I've come to different points of view. And this is always good. We have to expand our horizons. We have to go further and further, or else we're shrinking. The horizon comes back at us and crushes us down. So we want to always be expanding. This is the principle. The basis of empirical evidence as truth. Truth is established. Reality, if you will. Reality. What is real? Reality can only be established by empirical evidence. And I know there's a lot of people who are saying, Schertz, you're not quite getting this. The depth of your view is too shallow. You need to, improve. You need to broaden your basis. You're narrowing yourself too much. But I think we're all empirical physicalists. And I believe that the need for empirical evidence, irrefutable proof and evidence, as a basis of what we conclude to be actual, real, true, has to be based on evidence. And I believe all of you are that way too. Let me share a couple of ideas on why I suppose that is the way it is. And I do believe you'll at least agree with me in some of these areas that you too have to have, and you already accept, empirical evidence as truth for much of how we live. We live cautiously because of the empirical evidence that we are faced with every day, which teaches us the truth, which is seriously dangerous. And we live based on that empirical evidence that we all know. And this empirical evidence has wide reflective equilibrium. Now what I mean by that is I'm using Kai Nielsen's, the philosopher Kai Nielsen, what little I know of him. I haven't read any of his stuff. I'm getting his stuff from Tom Riskus's book, Deconstructing Mormonism, that I read last year, and I'm going through it again so that I can try to understand it. This idea of wide reflective equilibrium is that it is generally understood because it's evidenced by a large amount of people. Now, is this consensus truth? In some ways, yes. But do a group of people who all agree on the same thing, do they determine the truth? Not always. But having the wide reflective equilibrium of these themes I'm going to tell you about is virtually worldwide because it's almost so self-evident because of the irrefutable empirical evidence that it's really real. And this is fascinating to me. Let me share these ideas. Take the simple idea of air. I believe that 7 billion witnesses on this planet, just the human witnesses, will testify to the empirical reality of air based on absolute, irrefutable evidence. If you're alive, it is because you are doing whatever it takes for you to be able to continue breathing. Because we soon discovered, through direct experience or else by witnessing it happening to either someone else or another animal, that the lack of air seriously affects our lives. And if you lack air for just a very short time, you'll faint. And within just a matter of a few minutes, a lot of people will die without being able to breathe. The wide reflective equilibrium is this. It doesn't matter where out on the planet we live. This is a truth. This is a reality. The air that we breathe, the air behind me and all around me that you can't see, but you know is real, and I know is real, is based upon empirical evidence from us ourselves. How would you react if someone came up to you, grabbed you, and started to choke you? Slammed you up against a wall and started to choke you. You would fight. You wouldn't just stand there and try to say, "Gosh, how you doing? Long time no see, buddy." Oh no. You would fight. You would try to get their hands off of your neck so that you could breathe. Because we've learned through the empirical evidence, we've learned the truth. We've learned the reality that air is absolutely real and it's very essential in order for us to remain alive. And I believe 7 billion people on the earth will either know that right now or learn it through experience as they grow older. This becomes a basic understanding. But it's established as real through empirical, physical evidence. Now take this idea of fire. Nobody that I'm aware of, anywhere in the world, builds a campfire or builds a fire in the house and stands directly in the fire to get warm. Why? We know fire is real. It affects us. It can seriously hurt us. It can maim us, which will directly affect the rest of the way we live our lives. Or it can be our friend. It can warm us up. And that can affect us for good, especially if you've come out of the bitter cold air that you know is real, say up in the Arctic, where it gets to be 110 below. When you walk in, you build a fire, and that produces warmth. That's not an illusion. You have empirical, physical evidence that fire is heat. You don't, if you're a good parent, you don't build a great big 5-foot across flame of fire that burns up 30 feet high, typical of the white guy. Instead of the short little fire to get warm, you build a fire so damn big you have to stand 300 feet away, otherwise it'll cook you. You build that fire, but as a parent, your little wandering, crawling little toddler, you don't just place them down and then jump off into the tent to read a book and leave your kid unattended at the fire. Do you? No. Why? In fact, you don't let your kids play with fire without close supervision of an adult. Why? Because of the empirical fact, the physical evidence that it can seriously hurt your child. You too. You don't stand in the campfire, do you? No, I guarantee you don't. Not for the first 15 minutes while you're warming yourself up, you don't. Because it will seriously hurt you, if not kill you directly. We have the basis of reality with fire, heat. We have the empirical, physical evidence that that's real. And because it can affect us, we know we're real too. Truly. We really are real. It can affect us. Now take the earth that we live on. This magnificent planet. These rocks that I'm leaning against. I'm leaning against them. I know I'm not going to fall through them. They're real. They're solid. They're heavy. The earth, we have empirical, justifiable, physical evidence that it is real. We're here. We live on it. We breathe the air. We use the fire to heat us. And the ground is very, very, very solid underneath our feet. It's very solid. It's earth. And the reason that we stand on this earth is because of the gravitational pull of the earth on absolutely everything on it. We stay firmly grounded on the earth. We can jump up, but we will come back down to the earth. You can hold out a rock. The wide reflective equilibrium here is that 7 billion people on our planet can do this experiment, and all of us know that when we're holding an object, when we drop it, we don't look up into the sky to see it fall upward away from our feet, which are pointing toward the center of the earth, do you? No, you know. You know the earth is attracting the rock. When you drop it, it goes down. All 7 billion people on the planet have dropped objects, and they always go down. You don't see someone let go of an object and there it is just floating in air, unless it's a magician performing a trick. Reality, though, says no. That rock will not float. That rock will not fall up. It always falls down in relation to our feet toward the center of the earth. It always falls toward the center of the earth. That shows us that gravity exists. Everyone knows that you can't just jump off of the earth and go floating around. And if you do jump off a tall rock like this rock's probably what, 12, 13 feet high. If you jump off this rock and land down on the earth, it's going to hurt because the earth is solid. We have empirical, physical evidence showing the actual reality that the earth is here. Earth, just like the air, just like the fire. Now, what about the water? We have empirical evidence that water is real. You can't breathe very long in water, underwater. No parent in their right mind with their new 1.5-year-old toddler that's learning how to crawl, or even their 9-month-old toddler. I've heard of some toddlers starting to crawl at 6 months. You don't just walk out into the area where the pool is that's got a 10-foot deep end and then go back in and put on your makeup and dress your dress up to get ready to go on a date and leave your little wandering baby out there by that pool. We have empirical, physical evidence that we don't breathe water. People drown in water. This is why we're so cautious around water. We have a buddy system. We never go swimming alone if you can help it. When you're out water skiing or boating or whatever, you put on those life vests. That's right, because if you bump your head and it knocks you out and you end up falling out of the boat, you want to be able to float, not sink, because just 5 to 15 minutes can kill you without the air if you're under the water. The water affects us directly, physically. It changes your life. Many of us know someone who is drowned. Some of us have almost drowned. We know the feeling. It's terrifying. So we're cautious around water, right? We have empirical evidence to establish the truth that the oceans are real, that the beautiful mountain lakes are real. The rivers, the creeks, streams, little eddies, those are real. They can affect us. Water can be either good or bad also. We cannot live much past 4 days without water. We prove every day we're alive that food and water are real. We have empirical physical evidence that establishes the truth that water is actual. It's real. It exists. We've all seen it. We've all touched it. We have all drank it. We have to have, or we wouldn't be here right now. You can't live very long without water. Every day you drink water, you establish the fact that you know it's real, that we need it so that we use it. You can philosophize it out of existence all you want. Well, it's just 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. It's just chemical combined elements. In reality, on the quantum level, there's no such thing, etc. But you have to drink it every day, though. You have to. You have to drink fluids every day, or you don't get to type on your computer at night on the internet. You don't get to make videos if that's one of your things you want to do. You don't get to wake up and go to work. You don't get to enjoy your wife and kids and family. You don't get to see this beautiful world. You die, and you die rather quickly. Food you can go for several weeks without. Water, no, you can't. You have to have it. You implicitly accept the physical, empirical evidence that water is real, and therefore you are too, because it affects you by drinking it. You ever thought of it that way? That's interesting, isn't it? We all more or less live lives of caution because we know that the fundamental realities that help keep us alive are very precious and very tentative. It doesn't take very long to be without air before we die. It really honestly doesn't take very long without water or we all die. And the wide reflective equilibrium is the entire world knows this. Interestingly, water not only affects we human beings, it affects all of the animal world and all of the plant world too. Without water, they die. And we know this is an empirical fact because we've planted gardens, we water our lawns, our trees, our shrubs, and they thrive. When you don't water them, they die. It's that simple. Reality and truth is based upon, it's actually established with empirical physicality. Our scientific instruments, from the tunneling electron microscope that can actually show us the atom, which is astonishing, very, very small, all the way to our giant space telescope that shows us entire new galaxies, billions of light years away, all of it has established one thing. It's physical. Protons, neutrons, electrons, quarks, up and down quarks, charm quark, etc. Gluons and all the subatomic particles. Mostly they're just families of quarks, if I'm understanding it correctly. We've discovered the physical with the very best scientific instruments we have ever built that are seriously precise, astonishingly powerful. When you break your bone, it hurts. This is why even the philosopher who wants to philosophize away reality with his words, when he approaches a busy intersection, that philosopher will stop and he'll look both ways across the street before crossing. He is admitting by his caution that he has absolute empirical physical proof that there might be danger because a speeding automobile might come zipping by and hit him. And it might break both his legs. And then he has empirical, physical proof that he's real. It hurts. It can lay you up in the hospital if you get hit by a car going fast enough, break both your legs, your hip, your sternum, 16 ribs, both arms, your neck and your skull. Hey, you're in the hospital for months. That directly affects what you can do and what you can't do for possibly years and maybe the rest of your life. That so-called not quite real automobile changed your entire life involuntarily. So even the philosopher who wants to philosophize physicality away for a higher, nobler reality, which no one has discovered yet, with a wide reflective equilibrium, even that philosopher will be cautious crossing the street. He will make sure he lives in such a way that he can breathe easily. Because he knows without air he dies. The air, he admits, is real. No matter whether he philosophizes it out of existence logically or not, is irrelevant. He makes sure he can still breathe it. Interesting. He doesn't stand in the middle of the campfire, does he? No. He sits to the edge and holds his hands out. Rubs his hands. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's better. That's warm. But it's not real, but I can sure feel it, and it affects me, and it's warm. In fact, it could save my life if I was in the Arctic. Physical, empirical evidence establishes truth and reality. How can we possibly think any other way? The reality is the physical. This is where we live. This is what we are, and this is what everything is that we see, smell, touch, feel, taste, hear, and want. It's physical. That's how it is. Empirical evidence establishes that truth. Whether you like it or not, you prove it by drinking that water and eating the food every day, and caution with crossing the street. Careful with exercising yourself around water and fire. That's all I wanted to say tonight. So thanks for watching my videos. And remember, I will see you in the next video, and have a great life.